The dry lake bed shimmers under the scorching Nevada sun. A glint of metal catches a hiker's eye, an abandoned camper caked in mud and mystery. Inside, a family's belongings lay untouched, as if frozen in time. But where are the occupants of this eerie tomb? Rewind to June 14th, 1985. John and Mary Robertson pack up their trusty Ford camper for a weekend getaway to Lake Mead with their two daughters, 8-year-old Amy and 5-year-old Lily. The close-knit family from Henderson, Nevada, often takes trips to the sprawling reservoir, relishing in the serenity of the sapphire waters flanked by towering canyon walls. As the Robertsons wind along the curving lakeshore road, the girls giggle in the back, playing with their favorite dolls and peppering their parents with questions. "Are we there yet?" Amy chimes, bouncing on the cushioned bench. Mary smiles, her eyes crinkling at the corners, and reaches back to tousle her daughter's sandy hair. "Almost, sweetie. Daddy's just got to find us the perfect spot." John, a tall, lean man with a salt and pepper beard, peers over the steering wheel, scanning for the secluded cove they love. "I think that's it coming up here on the left," he says, flicking on the blinker. The camper jostles as it veers off the pavement onto a narrow dirt track shrouded by swaying cottonwoods. "Welcome to our secret hideaway," John announces in a playful voice as the camper lurches to a stop in a small clearing. The cove is deserted, the shimmering lake stretching out like an endless mirror. Amy and Lily squeal with excitement, already tugging at the door latch. "Remember the rules," Mary cautions gently but firmly. "No going near the water without me or Daddy, okay?" The girls nod solemnly. They know the drill. It's hammered into them every summer. Lake Mead is as beautiful as it is dangerous, the placid surface concealing steep drop-offs, hidden currents, and jagged rocks. Over the years, it's claimed the lives of hundreds of swimmers, not respecting its power. John sets up the camper with practiced ease while Mary corrals the bouncing girls, handing out sunscreen and floppy hats. Within minutes, their temporary home is ready. Awning extended, camp chairs circled around a fire pit, fishing rods propped and waiting. It's a scene straight out of a nostalgic postcard, the very picture of a happy family vacation. But the serenity is fleeting. As the long shadows of dusk paint the cliffs in streaks of orange and purple, the Robertsons gather around a flickering campfire, roasting hot dogs and marshmallows. Amy, ever the chatterbox, is regaling them with a story from school when Lily suddenly sits upright, her blue eyes wide. "Daddy," she whispers, pointing a sticky finger towards the dense brush at the edge of their camp. "There's a man watching us." John whips around, squinting into the deepening gloom. He sees nothing but gently waving leaves. "It's just the shadows playing tricks, Lil," he reassures her, but an icy tendril of unease threads down his spine. They are utterly alone out here, not another soul for miles. Or are they? That night, as the family settles into the camper, the wind picks up, whistling through the cottonwoods like a mournful cry. Mary startles awake, heart pounding. For a disorienting moment, she's not sure what roused her. Then she hears it, the soft crunch of footsteps circling the camper. Hand trembling, she nudges John awake. He rubs the sleep from his eyes and frowns. Hearing the deliberate steps, they're too heavy to be an animal. Someone is out there, pacing mere feet from where his daughters lay sleeping. John slides from the bed, grabbing a flashlight in one hand and a hunting knife in the other. "Stay here with the girls," he hisses to Mary, his face grim. "I'm going to check it out." Gripping the knife, John slowly pushes open the camper door. The rusted hinges let out a prolonged creak that slices through the still night air. He steps out into the murky darkness, heart thudding against his ribs. The footsteps have stopped. "Hello!" John calls, hating the quaver in his voice. "Is someone there?" Only the sigh of the wind through the leaves answers him. John forces himself to walk the perimeter of the camper, his meager flashlight beam. Skittering over the rock and scrub, There's no sign of an intruder, no snapped twigs or shifted stones, nothing to validate the crawling sensation of being watched. After several tense minutes, John climbs back into the camper, locking the door firmly behind him. "I didn't see anyone," he tells Mary, whose worried eyes gleam in the darkness. "Maybe we just heard an animal." He wants to believe it. They both do. But that night, as the family fitfully sleeps, no one notices the shadow crouched beneath the awning, nor the glint of moonlight off the blade of a long, wicked hunting knife. Waiting, watching. Morning dawns bright and clear over Lake Mead, the water sparkling like diamonds. But inside the Robertsons' camper, the mood is tense. Mary fries up bacon and eggs on the tiny stove, trying to shake off the lingering unease from the night before. She smiles tightly at the girls as they devour their breakfast, hoping her fear doesn't show. John emerges from the small bathroom, his face drawn. He barely picked at his food. "I think we should head home," he says in a low voice to Mary, not wanting to alarm the girls. "I just have a bad feeling." Mary purses her lips and nods, as much as she wants to brush off last night as their imaginations running wild. She can't quite convince herself. The sooner they're back in Henderson, the better. But as John steps outside to start packing up, he stops short. His eyes dart around the campsite, a deep frown etching into his brow. Something is wrong. It takes him a moment to put his finger on it. Then it hits him. Their fishing rods are gone, the 2 expensive poles that had been propped up outside. The camper have vanished. "Mary," John calls sharply, "did you bring the fishing poles in last night?" Mary appears in the doorway, her face registering confusion, then slow dread. "No, I thought you did." A thorough search of the campsite confirms the sinking truth. Someone has stolen their gear during the night, right under their noses as they slept mere feet away. A chill races up John's spine that has nothing to do with the morning breeze off the lake. They're not alone out here, and whoever is sharing these woods with them is growing bolder. John tries to rationalize it away. Maybe it was just some drifters looking to make a quick buck pawning the rods. The lake attracts all sorts, but deep down he knows it's more than that. It's a message. We can take what we want. We can get to you. "Girls, time to pack up," Mary calls with forced cheerfulness, hurrying Amy and Lily through the camper's tiny living space, tossing clothes and toys into backpacks. She keeps catching John's eye, sees her own taut apprehension mirrored there. They need to get out of here, now. But as the family lugs their bags from the camper, John curses under his breath. The tires, all 4 of them, flat as pancakes. His hands shake as he crouches to examine them, already knowing what he'll find. Each tire has been slashed repeatedly, the rubber shredded and sagging off the rims. A soft gasp behind him. Mary stands with a hand clasped over her mouth, eyes blown. Wide with fear, she looks at John, a silent plea. What do we do? Options race through John's mind, each more unpalatable than the last. Stay with the camper and wait for help. They haven't seen another soul in days. Try to hike out. It's miles to the nearest ranger station, and the park is a labyrinth of canyons and gullies. As if reading his thoughts, Lily's small voice pipes up, trembling slightly. "Daddy, how will we get home?" John takes a shuddering breath and pastes on a smile he doesn't feel. He has to be strong for his family, even as icy fear coils in his gut. "Don't worry, sweet pea. Daddy will figure it out. We'll be all right." The words sound hollow even to his own ears, because deep down, beneath the false comfort and lies, one grim thought crystallizes with cold certainty. They're trapped and utterly at the mercy of whoever is out there watching, waiting. The midday sun beats down mercilessly on the stranded family. They take refuge in the thin shade of the camper's awning, sipping tepid water from their canteens as they wait for rescue that feels increasingly unlikely to come. John paces the small campsite like a caged animal, his mind spinning. Staying put is a slow death sentence, but heading out on foot feels like delivering his family into the hands of whoever has been stalking them, like lambs to the slaughter. John's stomach churns at the dark images that flood his brain. What does this faceless entity want with them? Mary watches her husband, worry etched into every line of her face. She's never seen him like this, unmoored and unsure. John has always been their rock, their fearless protector. To see the naked fear in his eyes now terrifies her more than any knife-wielding shadow. As the shadows lengthen, they make a decision. They can't just sit here waiting to be picked off. They'll have to take their chances and hike out, try to make it to the ranger station. There's safety in light and movement. The alternative is huddling in their metal coffin for another long night, jumping at every snap of a twig. They pack lightly, water, snacks, a rudimentary first aid kit. John takes the hunting knife, sliding it into his belt. It's a puny defense against the vast wilderness and their unseen tormentor, but it's all he has. Hand in hand, they strike out into the woods, following the narrow dirt track that will eventually wind its way back to the main road. The girls are uncharacteristically quiet, sensing the tension radiating off their parents. Even Amy has stopped her constant stream of chatter, her small face pinched and solemn. For the first mile, the only sound is their labored breathing and the crunch of their sneakers on the packed earth. John leads the way, his head on a swivel, searching the dense undergrowth for any sign of movement. But the forest is still and silent, almost mockingly so. Then, just as they're beginning to breathe a little easier, a twig snaps behind them. Close. Too close. Mary whirls around, a scream lodged in her throat, but there's nothing there, just the empty trail stretching back the way they came. "Mommy!" Lily whimpers, pressing herself into Mary's leg. "Is the bad man following us?" "Shh, baby. It's okay." Mary soothes, even as her own heart races. There's no bad man. It was just an animal. But when she meets John's eyes over their daughter's head, she sees her own grim certainty reflected there. It's not an animal stalking them through the lengthening shadows. It's something far more sinister. They push on, trying to put distance between themselves and their unseen pursuer. But now the sounds of pursuit are unmistakable. The crack of a branch, the rustle of leaves. Each noise sends jolts of adrenaline spiking through their veins, propelling them forward on jelly legs. They're deep into the woods when they hear it. A long, shrill whistle, fluting through the trees like a hunter calling his dogs. John freezes, his blood turning to ice. That was no bird call. The whistle comes again, closer now, almost taunting. "Run," John says, his voice strangled. He scoops up Lily, holding her close as Mary grabs Amy's hand. And then they're crashing through the underbrush, thorns tearing at their clothes, branches whipping their faces. Behind them, heavy footfalls grow louder, closer. A dark figure glimpsed between the trees. They run until their lungs are bursting, and their muscles scream in protest. But no matter how fast they push themselves, their pursuer is always there, just out of sight, herding them, toying with them. When the ground suddenly drops away, and they find themselves at the edge of a steep ravine, they realize the terrible truth. They haven't been fleeing at all. They've been led, corralled like livestock to the slaughter. John turns to face their tormentor, putting himself between the threat and his family. The knife is slick in his trembling hand. "What do you want?" he shouts into the gathering darkness. "Why are you doing this?" From the shadows a figure emerges, tall and lean, face obscured by a dark hood. In his hand, the wicked hunting knife glints, twin to the stolen blade John grips. "I want," the figure rasps in a voice like dead leaves, "to play a game." The hooded figure stands unnaturally still, only the slightest tilt of his head betraying his fixation on the trembling family before him. "I want to play a game," he repeats, a note of anticipation creeping into his rasping voice. John brandishes his own knife, trying to place himself bodily between the stranger and Mary, who huddles with the girls at the edge of the ravine. "We don't want any trouble," John says, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Just let us go, please." The figure makes a low, considerate noise in his throat. Then, faster than any of them can track, he whips his arm forward. The knife flies from his hand, a dark blur in the gloom. It buries itself to the hilt in the dirt mere inches from John's foot, quivering slightly. Mary lets out a choked gasp, her nails digging crescents into Amy and Lily's shoulders as she grips them tighter. John goes utterly still, his face draining of color as he stares down at the knife. "As I was saying," the figure continues pleasantly, as if he hadn't just thrown a deadly weapon at them. "The game. It's very simple, really. You run, I chase. If I catch you..." He lets the implication hang, heavy and rancid in the air between them. John swallows thickly, mind racing. This can't be happening. Things like this don't happen to people like them. And if we make it out? If we get to the road? To help? The figure cocks his head, considering. "Well, then I suppose you win. But between you and me..." He leans forward. Slightly, a conspiratorial tilt to his shoulders. "No one ever wins." With that, he steps back, melting into the shadows as if he were never there. Only the knife still quivering in the ground proves he was no nightmare apparition. For a moment, no one moves. They hardly dare to breathe. Then John is yanking the knife free, wiping the dirt on his pant leg with a shaking hand. "We have to go," he says, his voice scraped raw with fear. "Now, before he comes back." But as they turn to flee deeper into the woods, a terrible realization sets in. The ravine stretches in either direction as far as the eye can see, a gaping wound in the earth, and the only way down is a treacherous, crumbling trail that switchbacks along the cliff face, narrow and exposed. They have no choice. John goes first, picking his way carefully down the path, knife gripped tight. Mary is next, Amy and Lily clinging to her hands, whimpering softly. The descent is agonizing, every skitter of loose rock under their feet eliciting a fresh jolt of heart-stopping fear. Halfway down, Lily stumbles, her small foot slipping off the edge. For a horrifying moment, she teeters over the yawning void, a scream trapped in her throat. Then Mary is hauling her back, crushing the little girl to her, just as sobs rack her tiny frame. "Shh, shh, you're okay," Mary murmurs into Lily's hair, even as tears streak her own dust-caked cheeks. "I've got you. I won't let you fall." But even as she says it, Mary knows it's a promise she might not be able to keep. Not with what's hunting them in the dark. It takes an eternity, but finally they reach the bottom of the ravine, stumbling onto the sandy bank of a narrow, quick-moving stream. For a moment they simply cling to each other, shaking with exhaustion and residual terror, but the relief is short-lived. Because drifting down from the top of the ravine they hear it, that eerie, taunting whistle piercing the night. Their tormentor is on the move. The game, it seems, is far from over. John meets Mary's eyes in the moonlight, filtering through the treetops, sees his own desperation reflected there. They're in his domain now. And the hunt is just beginning. The family stumbles along the rocky bank of the creek, the gurgle of the water and their own ragged breathing the only sounds in the pressing silence of the ravine. The towering walls of rock on either side feel like they're closing in, funneling them deeper into the earth. Every rustle of leaves, every flicker of shadow has them flinching, bracing for their pursuer to melt out of the darkness, knife in hand. But he seems content to bide his time, letting their own mounting terror do his work for him. "Daddy," Amy whimpers, her hand a sweaty vice in John's. "I'm scared. I want to go home." John's throat closes around the reassurances he wants to offer. Home feels like a distant memory, an unattainable dream. All that exists now is the next bend in the creek, the next moment of heart-hammering fear. As the first pale fingers of dawn begin to claw at the sky, John catches a flash of color out of the corner of his eye. He jerks to a stop, hardly daring to hope. There, snagged on an overhanging branch, is a scrap of red fabric, a bandana. With trembling fingers, John plucks it free, holding it up for Mary to see. Her eyes widen, a flicker of desperate hope kindling. A trail marker, she breathes. There must be a hiking path nearby. It's the first shred of hope they've had since this nightmare began. If they can find the trail, it could lead them out of this hellish ravine, back to civilization and safety. Energized by this new possibility, they press on with renewed urgency, eyes peeled for more markers. And there, a quarter-mile ahead, another flash of red, fluttering in the light breeze. John could weep with relief. They find the trail just as the sun crests the horizon, painting the sky in delicate pinks and golds. It's a narrow track, choked with undergrowth, but it's a lifeline. A way out. For hours they follow the meandering path, each red marker drawing them onward. The sun climbs high, beating down on their heads, but they barely feel it. All that matters is putting one foot in front of the other. It's midday when they round a bend and stumble to a halt, hardly believing their eyes. There, nestled in a small clearing, is a ranger station. It's a small, rustic cabin, but to the exhausted. Bimbly, it might as well be the Taj Mahal. Sobbing with relief, they stagger to the door, pounding on the weathered wood. "Hello?" John calls, his voice cracking. "Is anyone there? We need help." For a long, terrible moment, there's only silence. Then the creak of floorboards, the click of a lock. The door swings open to reveal a weathered, bearded man in a ranger's uniform, his kind eyes widening at the sight of the bedraggled family. "Good Lord," he says, ushering them inside. "What happened to you folks?" The story spills out of them in a jumble. The campsite, the slashed tires, the hooded figure, the terrible game. The ranger listens, his face growing graver by the second. "You're safe now," he assures them when they finally fall silent. "I'll radio for help, get you out of here and back to town." As he moves to the radio, static crackles from the receiver. A voice, distorted but unmistakable, filters through. "Ranger Stevens, you there? We've got a situation." The ranger frowns, picking up the handset. "Go ahead, dispatch." Reports of an abandoned camper out at Lake Mead. Belongs to a family, name of Robertson. They're missing. No sign of them. The blood drains from John's face. He looks to the ranger, mouth open to explain that there's been a mistake, that they're the Robertsons, that they're right here. But the words die in his throat, because Ranger Stevens is looking at them, and his eyes are wrong, cold, and flat and dark with a terrible hunger. "Missing, you say?" He speaks into the radio, never taking that dead gaze off the frozen family. "Well now, isn't that interesting?" And as he reaches slowly, deliberately, for the hunting knife on his belt, the one that matches the blades clutched in John and the stranger's hands, the truth crashes over them like a wave of icy horror. This is no rescue. This is the cruelest trap of all, and they've just walked right into it. For a breathless, stretched moment, no one moves. The Robertsons stare at the ranger, horror dawning as the terrible realization sinks in. This man, this supposed bastion of safety and authority, is in league with their faceless tormentor. "You," John croaks, numb fingers tightening around the hilt of his stolen knife. "You're with him. This was all a trap." Ranger Stevens smiles, a cold, predatory thing that doesn't reach his eyes. "Oh, he said you were a smart one. Pity it took you this long to figure it out." Mary pushes the girls behind her, shielding them, with her body even as they cower and whimper. "Why are you doing this?" she demands, voice shaking but edged with the steel of a mother's protective fury. "What do you want with us?" The ranger tilts his head, considering. "Want? Oh, it's not about want, it's about need. His need, I'm just here to facilitate." "Facilitate what?" John presses, even as dread coils cold and heavy in his gut. The game, of course. Stevens spreads his hands, the gesture obscene in its geniality. It's been so long since he's had players as resilient as you. Most don't make it this far. Bile rises in John's throat as the implications sink in. This isn't the first time these monsters have done this. How many other families have been hunted down like animals in these woods? How many never made it home? A camper, he says slowly, horror crystallizing into a terrible certainty. The reports of us missing, you faked them. To throw off any search, Stephen's smile widens, pleased. Got it in one. Not that anyone will be looking too hard. Folks go missing out here all the time. The park swallows them up, just like it'll swallow you. You won't get away with this, Mary hisses, her eyes flinty and bright with unshed tears. People will. Ask questions. They'll find out the truth. Will they? The ranger arches a brow. I am the truth out here, sweetheart. I'm the authority, and if I say the Robertsons disappeared without a trace... He shrugs, the motion weighted with a terrible finality. Well, who's going to argue? The reality of their situation crashes over the family like a suffocating wave. They're utterly at the mercy of these madmen, pinned like flies in a web of corruption and cruelty. No cavalry is coming to save them. They're on their own. The ranger sees the despair settle over them, savors it like a fine wine. Now then, he says briskly, all avuncular charm once more, I believe we have a game to get back to. He steps forward, reaching for Lily, who shrieks and tries to burrow further into Mary's embrace. John lurches between them, brandishing his knife with shaking hands. Don't you touch her, you son of a bitch! Stevens pauses, lip curling. Still got some fight in you, huh? Good. He likes it when they fight. Makes the game more interesting. The ranger moves with a viper's speed, seizing John's wrist and twisting viciously. John cries out as the knife clatters to the floor. Stevens kicks it away, then slams a fist into John's stomach, doubling him over. John! Mary screams as her husband crumples to the ground, gasping for breath. She starts forward, but the ranger levels the point of his blade at her throat, stilling her. He tuts. Let's not do anything hasty. Hate for my hand to slip. He digs the knife in just slightly, drawing a bead of crimson that trickles down Mary's neck. She swallows hard, paralyzed. Now, Stevens says, his tone one of strained patience. We're going to walk out of here nice and easy, and you're going to come with me and finish the game. Understand? When none of them move, he sighs and places the edge of his blade against Lily's tear-streaked cheek. I said, he repeats softly, do you understand? Yes, John grits out, staggering to his feet. We understand. And so, the macabre procession stumbles out of the ranger station and back into the waiting woods. Mary, and the girls first, Stevens behind them with his knife kissing Lily's skin, and John bringing up the rear, his shoulders bowed in defeat. The cruel parody of a rescue has given way to the grim truth. There will be no escape, no mercy. Only the game, played to its awful, inevitable end. And the Robertsons are still very much the hunted. They walk for hours, the sun beating down mercilessly as Stevens forces them deeper and deeper into the wilderness. John marks their passing with furtive glances at the sun, trying to orient himself, but the ranger seems to be taking them in circles, doubling back and weaving through the brush to confuse the trail. Finally, as the shadows are growing long and the air chilling, Stevens calls a halt at the mouth of a narrow canyon. We're here, he announces, something like excitement threading through his voice. John squints into the gloom of the canyon, sees a flicker of firelight dancing on the walls. His stomach clenches as he realizes what it must be, their tormentors' lair. The place where the game will end, one way or another. Stevens prods them forward, and they stumble into the canyon on numb legs. As they round a bend, the back of the crevasse comes into view, and John has to choke back a cry. It's a macabre campsite from a nightmare. A lean-to fashioned from branches and tattered tarps, a fire pit ringed with mismatched camping chairs, a clothesline strung with what looks sickeningly like trophies, a blood-stained ball cap, a tattered baby blanket, a locket glinting in the firelight. Relics of the hunter's previous victims, and there, standing by the flames, is the hooded figure. He turns as they approach, and even from a distance, John can feel the weight of that cold, pitiless gaze. "Well done, Stevens," the hunter says, his rasping voice sending shivers down Mary's spine. "I knew you'd flush them out." The ranger preens under the praise, even as he shoves the Robertsons forward. "Caught 'em trying to call for help just like you said they would," the figure hums, considering the trembling family. "Resourceful. I appreciate that in prey. It's no fun if they just lay down and die." John bristles at that, at being reduced to a thing to be hunted. "Why are you doing this?" he demands, trying to summon some scrap of defiance even as his knees want to give out. "What do you want from us?" The hunter cocks his head, the firelight playing over the dark hollows of his eyes. "I thought that would be obvious by now, John. I want to hunt, and you're going to run. And if we don't?" Mary's voice is thin but steady, her arms wrapped tight around the girls. "What if we refuse to play your sick game?" The figure moves, faster than a blink, closing the distance between them. He seizes Amy by the arm, wrenching her away from Mary with brutal force. The girl screams, kicking and thrashing as he holds her aloft like a rag doll. "Amy!" Mary lunges for her daughter, but Stevens is there, locking her arms behind her back. John starts forward with a roar, but the hunter whips a knife to Amy's throat, and he freezes, anguished. "I don't think you understand," the madman says softly, almost gently, even as he digs the blade into the soft skin of Amy's neck. "You don't get a choice. You run, and maybe you survive the night. Or—" He trails the knife lower over Amy's hammering pulse down to her heaving chest, draws it across her sternum in a macabre caress. The implication is clear. Play or watch their daughter be butchered before their eyes. "Okay!" The word rips from John's throat, ragged and desperate. "Okay, we'll do it. We'll run. Just don't hurt her, please." For a long, terrible moment, the hunter is still. Then he lowers Amy to the ground, releasing her. She flies to Mary, sobbing, burrowing into her mother's embrace. "You've got 1 hour," the hunter says, his tone almost bored. He gestures to a narrow offshoot of the canyon, a crack in the stone barely wide enough to slip through. 1 hour. And then we come looking. John meets Mary's eyes, sees his own desperate, heartsick resolve reflected there. They have no choice. For their girls, they'll run, even if only to buy 1 more hour of life before the evil lurking in these hills catches up to them. Stevens cuts their bonds, and they flee, plunging into the darkening woods, acutely aware of the monsters at their back. The game has begun anew, but this time there may be no escape from the lair of the beasts. The Robertsons crash through the underbrush, heedless of the branches that whip at their faces and tear at their clothes. All that matters is putting distance between themselves and the nightmare they've left behind. John leads the way, one hand tight around Lily's, the other brandishing a jagged branch he's snatched up as a makeshift weapon. Mary follows close behind, half carrying a stumbling Amy, who can't seem to stop shaking. They run until their lungs are bursting and their muscles scream in protest. Finally, as a stitch knifes through John's side, he staggers to a halt in a small clearing, the family collapsing against the bole of a massive oak. For a few moments, there is only the sound of their labored breathing and the occasional sniffle from the girls. Then Mary speaks, her voice thin but resolute. "We can't go on like this," she says, stroking Amy's hair as the girl clings to her, running blind, just waiting for them to catch us. John clenches his jaw, knowing she's right, but hating it all the same. "What choice do we have? You heard them. They're coming for us. We have to keep moving. And then what? We run ourselves to exhaustion and they take us anyway? Or we stumble off a cliff in the dark?" Mary shakes her head, eyes bright with unshed tears. We need a plan. We need to fight back. John barks a humorless laugh. Fight back? With what? We're outnumbered, unarmed, not unarmed. Mary nods to the branch gripped in John's white-knuckled hand. And not outnumbered. Not if we're smart about it. She takes a shuddering breath, visibly steeling herself. One of us needs to lead them away, buy the others time to find help, or at least a place to hide. John stares at her, uncomprehending. Then the implication sinks in, and he recoils as if struck. No, no way. We stay together. They'll catch us together, Mary hisses, careful to keep her voice low. This is the only way. I'll lead them off. Circle back to the ranger station. Maybe I can find a radio, call for help. I'll do it. John's voice is leaden with resignation, but his eyes are fierce. You take the girls, head north. With any luck, you'll hit a road or a trail, find some hikers. John. Mary reaches out, grips his hand. Her fingers are icy, trembling. You know it has to be me. The girls, they need their father. They need their mother. Anguish cracks John's voice, tears spilling down his cheeks. They need to survive. Mary's tone is gentle but unyielding. Amy, Lily, they won't make it without you. You have to get them out of here. She turns to the girls, gathering them close. They cling to her, sensing the gravity of the moment, even if they don't fully understand it. My brave girls, Mary murmurs into their hair. I need you to go with Daddy now, okay? He's going to keep you safe. Mommy, no, Amy whimpers, fisting her hands in Mary's shirt. Don't go. Mary smooths a hand over her daughter's hair, memorizing the feel of it. I have to, baby, but I'll be right behind you, okay? I'll find you again, I promise. It's a lie, and they both know it. But Amy nods anyway, biting her lip hard to keep from sobbing. Lily just burrows closer, too young to do anything but feel her mother's heartbeat, the warmth of her embrace. Mary untangles herself from her daughters, standing on unsteady legs. She reaches for John and he goes to her, folding her into his, arms as if he can imprint the feel of her onto his very soul. Come back to us, he whispers into her hair, his voice breaking. Please. Mary draws back to cup his face in her palms, dark eyes searching his. Get our girls home, John, whatever it takes. Then she's turning away, squaring narrow shoulders under the weight of her sacrifice. With one last aching look at her family, she slips into the trees, heading back the way they came. She doesn't look back. She can't. If she does, she'll never be able to do what needs to be done. John watches her go, a piece of his heart tearing away with every step she takes. Then he turns to his daughters, sees the raw animal fear in their eyes. Come on, he says roughly, taking their hands in his. We have to move. And so they do, stumbling deeper into the woods, leaving a piece of their fractured family behind. With every step, the night presses close, alive with horrors, and one terrible unspoken truth hangs heavy between the remaining Robertsons. They will likely never see Mary again. John staggers through the darkened woods, one girl's hand clutched in each of his own. His heart hammers against his ribs, every crackling twig and rustling leaf setting his nerves alight. He strains his ears for any sound of pursuit, of Mary leading their tormentors on a wild chase. But the night is eerily silent, as if the forest itself is holding its breath, waiting. They've been walking for hours, the moon cresting high above the treetops. John's feet are numb, his legs trembling with exhaustion. But he pushes on, driven by desperation and the memory of Mary's fierce, tearful face. Get our girls home, just as he's beginning to fear they'll wander these woods forever. The trees break, and they stumble onto a dirt road. Not the main highway, but a side route, overgrown and rutted. Still, it's a lifeline, a path to salvation. Look, Lily cries, pointing with her free hand. John follows her finger to the glint of metal in the moonlight. An old pickup truck, rusted and riddled with bullet holes, rests crookedly against a bank as if abandoned in haste. John hardly dares to hope as he races to the vehicle, wrenching open the door. The keys dangle from the ignition, a rabbit's foot swaying gently, a good luck charm. John could weep. "Get in," he urges the girls, all but lifting them into the cab. "Quick, quick!" They scramble in, and John slides behind the wheel, turning the key with a prayer on his lips. The engine coughs, sputters, and roars to life. The truck lurches onto the road, John wrestling with the wheel. He floors the accelerator, the vehicle's frame shuddering as it fights for traction on the uneven ground. They fly down the path, the trees a blur of shadow and moonlight. For a few shining moments, John lets himself believe they've made it, that they've escaped, that they'll find help, bring back the cavalry for Mary. Then the road curves and his stomach bottoms out. There, blocking the way ahead, is a figure. Tall and lean, a rifle propped casually on one shoulder. Even at a distance, there's no mistaking the stance, the aura of cruel control. It's him, the hunter. John swears, wrenching the wheel to the side. But it's too late. The hunter raises the rifle with deliberate slowness, sighting down the barrel, and squeezes the trigger. The report cracks through the night like thunder, and the pickup's windshield explodes in a hail of glass. John cries out, throwing an arm up to shield his face. The truck swerves wildly, jumping the roadside ditch and ploughing into the trees with a sickening crunch of metal. For a moment, everything is still. Then John is moving, scrabbling at his seatbelt, twisting to look at the girls. "Amy, Lily, are you okay?" Lily moans, raising her head. A cut oozes blood above her eye, and she looks dazed, but alive. Amy is slumped against the door, unmoving, and John's heart seizes. But then she stirs, whimpering, and he could collapse with relief. "Out," he hisses, kicking his door open. "We have to get out now." He half drags the girls from the wreckage, pulling them into a stumbling run. Behind them, heavy footsteps crunch on the gravel road, unhurried, toying. "I must admit I'm impressed," the hunter calls, his voice crawling over John's skin like oil. "You're putting up quite the fight. Your wife, too. She actually managed to wound Stevens before he subdued her." John's heart clenches at the mention of Mary, but he keeps moving, all but carrying the girls now. If the hunter is talking, he's not shooting. They just need to make it a little farther. "I'll give you a choice, John." The voice is closer now, almost conversational, as if this is all just a friendly chat. "You can keep running, dragging this out, or you can face me now. Give your girls a quick end, instead of the slow, painful deaths waiting for them in these woods." Hot tears streak down John's face, mingling with the blood and grime. He wants to scream, to rage against the cruelty of the choice laid before him, but he can't deny the horrific logic of it. "Keep going," he gasps to Amy and Lily, releasing their hands. "No matter what you hear, keep running. Get to the road. Find help." "Daddy, no!" Amy sobs, clinging to him. "Don't leave us!" John crushes her to him, breathing in the scent of her hair. "I will always be with you," he whispers fiercely. "Always. Now go, go!" He shoves them away, turning to face the advancing hunter as they disappear, stumbling into the brush. The man regards him with a tilt of his head, something like respect in his cold gaze. "A father's sacrifice," he muses, readying his rifle. How poetic. John squares his shoulders, hands curling into fists at his sides. He thinks of Mary's strength, her unwavering love. He draws on it now, letting it steady him. "Fuck you," he says softly, calmly, and charges. The hunter's eyes widen, just for a moment, then he's bringing the rifle up, finger tightening on the trigger. But John is already on him, a wordless cry tearing from his throat as he barrels into the taller man with the force of a father's desperation. They hit the ground hard, the rifle skittering away. John scrabbles for it, but the hunter is quick, a snake uncoiling. A fist cracks across John's jaw, snapping his head to the side. Stars burst behind his eyes. They grapple in the dirt, all precision lost in a tangle of straining limbs and animal. Snarls. The hunter is strong, vice-like hands finding John's throat squeezing. John claws at the iron grip, lungs burning, the edges of his vision sparking black. As consciousness gutters, John's seeking fingers close around a rock, dislodged in their struggle. With the last of his strength, he brings it down on the hunters, temple with a visceral crack. The hands at his throat spasm, then slacken. The hunter slumps to the side, a dark trickle oozing from his ear. John sucks in a great, ragged gasp, the night air searing his lungs. For a long moment he simply lays there, chest heaving as he stares up at the star-strewn sky. Then, shakily, he rolls to hands and knees and crawls to the fallen rifle. It's a comforting weight in his hands as he staggers to his feet, casting one last look at the unconscious hunter. Part of him longs to finish it, to put a bullet in the monster's brain and ensure he never threatens another family. But the larger part, the part that is all father, knows he needs to find his girls, needs to cling to the desperate hope that Mary is still out there, waiting for him, so he turns his back on vengeance, letting the night swallow the broken figure on the ground, and limps off in the direction his daughters fled, a prayer on his bloodied lips. It's not over. He knows that. There's still Stevens to contend with, still a hard road ahead. But for the first time since this nightmare began, he dares to hope that it's a road they just might see the end of. Together. Dawn breaks over the treetops, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold. Birds begin their morning song, the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze, a soothing counterpoint. It's a scene of utter tranquility, a stark contrast to the horrors of the night. John limps down the center of the dirt road, the rifle clutched in his hands, his eyes fixed on the bend ahead. It's where he told the girls to go, to find help. He can only pray they listened. As he rounds the curve, a sob catches in his throat. There, idling by the roadside, is a familiar forest green jeep, the ranger's vehicle. For a moment, he's sure it's another cruel trick, that Stevens will step out, rifle leveled at John's chest, ready to finish what his twisted partner started. But then the driver's side door swings open and a figure all but tumbles out, slim and quick, her dark hair coming loose from a ponytail. John, Mary, alive, here. John staggers forward, letting the gun fall from numb fingers as Mary flies to him. They crash together, sinking to their knees in the middle of the road as great racking sobs shake them both. I heard the shot, Mary gasps out between hitching breaths. I was so afraid. I thought, I'm okay. John soothes, running his hands over her, reassuring himself she's real. We're okay. A flash of movement over Mary's shoulder draws his attention and fresh tears spring to his eyes. Amy and Lily, dirty and disheveled but gloriously whole, clamber out of the jeep's back seat. Daddy! John opens his arms, and his daughters fly into them, the family collapsing into a fierce embrace right there on the sun-warmed asphalt. They cling to each other, tears mingling, hearts beating as one. Eventually, Mary pulls back just enough to cup John's face in her palms, her eyes searching his. Stevens, she asks, dread and hope warring in her voice. Handled, John says grimly. Found him waiting by the truck. Let's just say the Rangers will be needing a new vehicle. Mary closes her eyes, a shudder rippling through her. Then she's folding John back into her arms, pressing fierce kisses to his temple, his cheek, the corner of his mouth. I knew you'd find us, she whispers, her voice fierce with pride and love. I knew you'd bring our girls home. There on the dusty roadside, the Robertsons hold each other as the sun rises fully over the horizon, banishing the last of the night's shadows. They know the road ahead won't be easy. There will be questions to answer, statements to give, trauma to untangle, but they'll face it as they have everything else. Together. A family unbroken, forged stronger in the crucible of a nightmare. End. The years to come. The story of their ordeal will become local legend, the tale of the Robertsons, the family that fought back against a monstrous evil lurking in the woods. The family that survived. The rangers' bodies will be discovered, of course, the gruesome details of their crimes coming to light. The families of their previous victims will finally have answers, if not peace. But for John, Mary, Amy, and Lily, peace will come, slowly, day by day, as they heal and grow and learn to leave the horrors of that distant night on the shores of Lake Mead. They'll never forget, not entirely. But they'll learn to remember the love more than the fear, the strength more than the pain. And when they stand together on golden anniversaries, at graduations, at the christenings of grandchildren, they'll be able to look back on that terrible, fateful summer and be grateful. Grateful for the ties that bind, for the love that endures, for in the end, it was not evil that prevailed in those dark woods. It was the unshakable power of family, the relentless resilience of the human spirit. Against all odds, the Robertsons made it home. And there, in the warmth and safety of that precious togetherness, they found the strength to carry on, one day, at a time. The sun rises, a new dawn breaking, and with it comes the promise of hope, of healing, of a future where the shadows of the past can no longer touch them. The Robertsons walk on, hand in hand, into the light.